Yeah. Yeah, man. When did you get in with the Steve, was it the Steve Miller Band?
That was,
When did that?
there's a big hole in there, but I'll kind of chip through it real quick. I did come back off the road with that band. I did do some other bands in town, and just skipped around and cover bands or whatever. And I met a guy named Jeff who was really talented, and he and I were going to start another cover band. And we were looking for a female vocalist, and that's when he introduced me to my now current wife, Diane, who at that time was kind of a star already. She was doing a great piano trio in town and playing all the biggest and best, steakhouses and, the supper clubs or whatever. And her name is Diane Steinberg. And when I met her, we were thinking maybe she might want to join our band. It was just a fluke. She didn't need to. She was already had a record deal under her belt and was getting ready to do a second album. And she didn't need us, but she was very, very kind. And we went and sat in with her and hung for the evening. And I fell in love with this woman. I couldn't believe her. And I didn't think I'd ever see her again. And at one point, she needed a bass player. She got stuck. And all the guys that she normally used, she couldn't get. She called Jeff. He says, well, why don't you call Keny? He's pretty good and he reads. So she called me, and I ended up subbing on her normal bass player gig, and we just hit it off. And then she was the one that got me involved in writing, music publishing, and then eventually, when we did her album, she insisted that I play on it. And I met all the guys in Toto who were playing on her album, Jeff Porcaro and Paige and all those guys, Jay Graydon on guitar. And so it was a really great introduction to some really high AA studio musicians that took me in quickly and got
Mm.
me quickly. So that happened. That went on for a couple of years. I got in another band. We did some records. I did some writing. The drummer for that band was a guy who happened to play. His name is Gary Malaber. He happened to play on most of Steve Miller's hits that had already come and happened, between 77 and 78. Because when I met this guy, it was about 80. Steve was already kind of like a has-been by 81. He was kind of floundering and looking for material. And then he called Gary looking for material one day when we were trying to go for our own record deal off of another band that we'd been in. And that's when he took the songs that I had co-written with Gary and a guy named John, and that became the Abracadabra album in the winter of 1981. And I wasn't in the band. I was just a writer at that point. And he asked me to come in and help co-produce the record over Capitol and sort of finish it up for Christmas. And that's when eventually I got a phone call from him to said, look, you play guitar and bass on this. You wrote songs on this. Why don't you just come out and tour with us and join the band?